She stood outside that boardroom for exactly 47 minutes. 47 minutes of being told to wait with the other service staff. 47 minutes of watching executives in $1,000 suits walk past her like she was invisible. 47 minutes of hearing whispers like, "Who let her up here?" And someone call security. We can't have random people wandering around on board meeting day. But here's what none of them knew. The woman they were humiliating, the woman they told to go back to whatever floor she came from, the woman the head of operations laughed at and called completely lost. She owned 51% of that entire company. Every single share of stock that gave them their bonuses, she controlled it. Every corner office they fought and backstabbed to get, she could take it away with a single signature. The building they stood in, the parking spots with their names on them, the 7-figure salaries they bragged about at country clubs, all of it belonged to her. Her name was Maya Thompson. And in exactly 12 minutes, she was going to walk into that boardroom, take the seat at the head of the table, look each of them directly in the eye, and say 8 words that would end careers, expose secrets, and burn their carefully constructed world to the ground. 8 words. I was outside, waiting to see how you treat people you think are beneath you. But what happened next? What they tried to do to save themselves. The conspiracy she uncovered that went all the way to the founding family? That's where this story gets dark. Because Maya didn't just expose arrogance that day. She uncovered a betrayal so deep, so calculated, that by the end of this story, you won't believe this started with a simple case of mistaken identity. This is a story about power, about respect, about the masks people wear when they think no one important is watching. And I promise you, by the end of these next 30 minutes, you will never look at someone unimportant the same way again. Now before we dive into what happened in that boardroom, I need to ask you something. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had someone look at you like you didn't belong, if you've ever been dismissed because of how you looked, what you wore, or where people assumed you came from, then you already know why Maya's story matters. And here's the thing, this channel? It's built for people like us. People who were told they'd never make it. People who had to prove themselves twice as hard just to get half the recognition. If that's you, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Not for me. For you. For the reminder every single week that the people who underestimate you, they always lose in the end. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get back into Maya's story. Because what she's about to do to that boardroom, it's the most satisfying payback I've ever had the privilege of telling you about. To understand who Maya Thompson was on the day she walked into that building, you need to understand who she was 15 years before she owned a single share of stock. Maya grew up in Riverdale, a neighborhood most people in the city pretended didn't exist. Her mother, Gloria, worked 3 jobs, cleaning houses during the day, stocking shelves at night, and on weekends, she babysat for wealthy families who paid her in cash and rarely looked her in the eye. Maya used to go with her mother to those big houses sometimes. She'd sit in the laundry rooms or back porches, doing her homework on plastic chairs, while her mother scrubbed floors and ironed shirts for people who never bothered to learn her name. And even at 8 years old, Maya noticed something that would shape her entire life. The families her mother worked for? They didn't treat Gloria like a person. They treated her like furniture. Like something functional that existed only to serve. They'd talk about their help, right in front of her, as if Gloria couldn't hear. As if she didn't have feelings. As if her dignity was something she'd surrendered along with her coat when she clocked in. Make sure the help doesn't use the front bathroom. I don't like how the help arranged the flowers. Did the help remember to pick up the dry cleaning? The help. Not Gloria. Not Mrs. Thompson. Not even a name. Just the help. One night, after a particularly brutal 12-hour shift, Maya found her mother sitting at their tiny kitchen table, crying quietly into her hands. She'd been fired that day. One of the wealthy wives accused her of stealing a bracelet. A bracelet that was later found under the woman's own bathroom sink. But by then the damage was done. Gloria's reputation was ruined. 3 other families canceled her services within a week, all based on a lie told by someone who never bothered to apologize. That night, 8-year-old Maya made a decision. She sat beside her mother, took her hand and said, "Mama, one day I'm going to own one of those big houses. And I'm going to make sure no one ever treats you like that again. Gloria smiled through her tears. She didn't believe it was possible. How could she? The world had taught her that people like them didn't get to sit at the big tables. But Maya believed it. And she spent the next 2 decades proving it. Maya's path to success wasn't a straight line. It was a maze filled with closed doors, rejection letters, and people who told her she'd never amount to anything. She worked her way through community college, then transferred to a state university on a scholarship she'd applied to 17 times before she got it. She studied business during the day and worked night shifts at a call center where customers screamed at her for things that weren't her fault. But Maya had something most people don't. A memory forged in her mother's tears. She never forgot how it felt to be invisible. And that memory became fuel. By 25, she'd saved enough to start a small consulting firm, helping minority-owned businesses navigate contracts and secure funding. By 28, her firm had grown into a full-fledged investment company. By 32, Maya Thompson had quietly become one of the most successful private investors in the region, and almost nobody knew her name. She kept a low profile deliberately. No magazine covers. No keynote speeches at conferences. No flashy social media presence. Maya believed that anonymity was power. Because when people don't know who you are, they show you exactly who they are. She'd watched enough executives perform for cameras, and then mistreat assistants the moment the cameras turned off. She'd seen enough CEOs give speeches about company values, while building cultures of fear and discrimination behind closed doors. Maya didn't want performances. She wanted truth. And that's why, when the opportunity to acquire a controlling stake in Nexus Dynamics came across her desk, she knew exactly how she was going to handle it. Nexus Dynamics was a rising star, a tech manufacturing company valued at nearly $2 billion, with government contracts, cutting-edge patents, and a reputation for innovation. But Maya had heard whispers. The company looked beautiful from the outside, but inside? Sources told her the executive culture was toxic. Discrimination complaints were buried. Talented employees from underrepresented backgrounds were passed over for promotions. Harassment was ignored. When the previous majority stakeholder decided to sell his shares due to health issues, Maya saw her chance. Through a series of carefully structured holding companies and legal entities, she quietly acquired 51% of Nexus Dynamics. And she told no one. Her plan was simple: attend the annual board meeting, the most important meeting of the year, in person, without announcing herself. She wanted to see how these executives behaved when they thought no one important was watching. She wanted to see if the whispers were true. And on the morning of March 15th, Maya Thompson got dressed in simple clothes, a modest blouse, dark slacks, no jewelry except her late mother's small gold ring, and walked into the Nexus Dynamics headquarters. What happened over the next 2 hours would change everything. The lobby of Nexus Dynamics was designed to intimidate. 30-foot ceilings. Italian marble floors. A massive abstract sculpture that probably cost more than most people's houses. Maya walked through the revolving door at exactly 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes before the board meeting was scheduled to begin. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a Bluetooth headset, looked up as Maya approached the desk. For a moment, their eyes met, and Maya watched the receptionist's gaze travel from her face, to her simple clothes, to her sensible shoes, and then, something shifted. The polite smile became something else. Something condescending. Deliveries go around back. Loading dock entrance is on Jefferson Street. Maya kept her voice calm. Neutral. I'm not making a delivery. I'm here for the board meeting. The receptionist actually laughed. Not a chuckle, a full disbelieving laugh. The board meeting? Sweetie, that's an executive-level meeting. Are you sure you're not looking for the job fair on the 3rd floor? HR is hiring for the mailroom, I think. Maya felt the familiar heat rise in her chest. The same heat she'd felt watching her mother get disrespected in those big houses decades ago. But she stayed calm. I'm certain. The board meeting. Executive conference room. The receptionist's smile curdled into annoyance. Look, I don't know who told you to come here, but you can't just walk in and... Is there a problem here, Jennifer? A man's voice cut through the lobby. Maya turned to see a tall man in a custom-tailored suit approaching. His shoes probably cost more than her car. His watch definitely did. This was Victor Harrington, head of operations, second highest ranked executive at Nexus Dynamics. Maya recognized him from the company files she'd studied for months. Victor barely glanced at Maya before addressing the receptionist. "What's going on?" "She says she's here for the board meeting, Mr. Harrington." Victor finally looked at Maya. His gaze did the same journey the receptionists had: face, clothes, shoes, and his expression became openly amused. "The board meeting. Right." He turned back to the receptionist. "Call security. Make sure she waits outside until we figure out who she belongs to." Who she belongs to. The words hit Maya like a slap. But she didn't flinch. "I don't need security," Maya said evenly. "I just need to get to the conference room." Victor stepped closer, using his height to intimidate. He lowered his voice, but not enough that others couldn't hear. "Listen, sweetheart. I don't know if someone's playing a joke on you, or if you wandered in here thinking you could sneak into a meeting you have no business attending. But let me make this very clear. This building, these meetings, these decisions, they're for people who actually matter. So do yourself a favor, turn around, and go back to wherever you came from. Maybe grab a broom on the way out, since that's probably more your speed." Two other executives who had just arrived laughed at the comment. Maya's heart pounded. Not with embarrassment, with controlled fury. She looked Victor directly in the eye. "I'll wait," she said quietly. "I'll wait and I'll remember." Victor smirked, already dismissing her. "You do that. Jennifer, make sure she stays out of the executive areas. I don't want random people wandering around causing problems." And with that, he strode toward the elevators, surrounded by his colleagues, their laughter echoing across the marble lobby. Maya stepped aside. And she waited. For 47 minutes, Maya Thompson stood in that lobby. She didn't sit. She didn't use her phone. She didn't try to explain herself again. She simply watched. And what she saw confirmed every whisper she'd heard about Nexus Dynamics. She watched a senior accountant berate a young male clerk for being too slow, then threatened to have him fired when the young man apologized. She watched a female executive get interrupted 3 times in 30 seconds by male colleagues, none of whom acknowledged they'd done it. She watched a janitor get shoved out of the way by someone rushing to the elevator. No apology, no acknowledgement, not even a backward glance. And every few minutes, someone new would glance at Maya, assume she didn't belong, and either ignore her completely or make a snide remark under their breath. Why is she still standing there? Probably waiting for someone to give her directions back to the bus stop. Security should really be more careful about who they let in. Each comment was a small cut, and Maya let herself feel every single one. Not because she was weak, but because she needed to remember. She needed to remember exactly why she was doing this. At 9:15, an assistant rushed through the lobby looking panicked. "Has anyone seen the majority shareholders representative?" she asked the receptionist frantically. "The meeting's about to start, and Mr. Harrington is furious. The main stakeholder was supposed to send someone, but no one's arrived. I haven't seen anyone who looked like they'd be representing a major shareholder." The assistant bit her lip nervously. "This is a disaster. We can't proceed without approval from the majority owner. The whole meeting depends on their vote." Maya watched this exchange silently. No one looked at her. No one asked if maybe, just maybe, she was the person they were looking for. Because they couldn't imagine that someone like her could hold that kind of power. At 9:25, the assistant returned, even more panicked. "Mr. Harrington wants everyone in the conference room now. We're going to have to delay the vote until the shareholders' representative arrives." Maya decided she had seen enough. She smoothed her blouse. She touched her mother's ring. And she walked toward the elevator. "Excuse me," the receptionist called out. "You can't go up there. Security." But Maya didn't stop. She stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the top floor, and watched the doors close on the receptionist's stunned face. The ride to the executive floor took 32 seconds. 32 seconds to prepare for a moment 15 years in the making. The doors opened, and Maya walked toward the boardroom. The conference room was chaos. 12 executives sat around a massive oval table, papers scattered everywhere, voices raised in frustration. At the head of the table sat an empty chair. The chair reserved for the majority shareholder or their representative. Victor Harrington stood at the front of the room, gesturing angrily. This is unacceptable. We can't proceed without the controlling stakeholders' approval. Someone get the legal team on the phone. We need to. The door opened. Every head turned. Maya Thompson walked in. For a moment, no one spoke. The executives looked at her the same way they'd looked at her in the lobby, confused, dismissive, annoyed. Victor Harrington recovered first. Who let her in here? This is a closed executive meeting. Someone get security up here immediately. Maya said nothing. She walked calmly around the table, past executives who leaned away from her as if she carried some contagious disease. She walked directly to the head of the table, and she sat down in the empty chair. The room erupted. What are you doing? Get out of that chair immediately. Do you have any idea what? I know exactly what this chair represents. Maya's voice was calm, cold, final. The room went silent. She looked around the table, making eye contact with each person who had laughed, who had whispered, who had dismissed her. Then she spoke. My name is Maya Thompson. Through my investment holdings, I am the 51% majority owner of Nexus Dynamics. This company, these offices, these contracts, these decisions, they answer to me. And for the past 47 minutes, I've been standing in your lobby, being told to wait with the service staff, being called sweetheart, being asked if I needed directions to the bus stop. She turned to look directly at Victor Harrington, whose face had gone completely white. I was outside, waiting to see how you treat people you think are beneath you. Victor's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Maya continued, her voice steady as a blade. Here's what's going to happen now. This meeting is no longer about quarterly profits or expansion contracts. This meeting is about the future of leadership at Nexus Dynamics. And based on what I witnessed today, not just how you treated me, but how you treat everyone you consider less than, that future is going to look very different than you expected. She pulled a folder from her bag and placed it on the table. Inside this folder are the documented complaints from 37 employees over the past 3 years. Discrimination, harassment, retaliation, all buried by HR under instructions from senior leadership. She opened the folder and slid papers toward different executives. These are the internal memos proving that complaints were ignored. These are the settlement agreements with NDAs designed to silence victims. And these. She pulled out a final stack of documents. Are your letters of termination, effective immediately? Chaos erupted again, but this time it was different. This time it was fear. Victor Harrington stood, his face purple with rage. You can't do this. I've been with this company for 15 years. I built this. You built a culture of cruelty. Maya cut him off. You built an environment where power meant permission to humiliate. Where looking a certain way meant being treated like you don't matter. She stood, and though she was shorter than almost everyone in the room, she seemed to tower over them. I grew up watching people like you treat my mother like she was invisible, like her dignity was an inconvenience. I promised myself I would never let that stand when I had the power to change it. She picked up the termination letters. I have that power now. Over the next 3 hours, Maya Thompson didn't just clean house, she dismantled a system. Victor Harrington was escorted from the building by security, his personal items packed in boxes that his former assistant was instructed to ship to him. He never set foot in the building again. 4 other executives were terminated for cause, their golden parachutes revoked under clauses in their contracts that none of them had taken seriously. The receptionist who had laughed at Maya was not fired, but she was required to undergo extensive training, and she later wrote Maya a personal letter of apology that reduced her to tears. But what Maya discovered next changed everything. While reviewing the buried complaints, her legal team uncovered something far more sinister than workplace discrimination. For years, a small group of executives had been siphoning company funds into shell corporations. They'd been manipulating stock prices, leaking proprietary technology to competitors, and positioning themselves to execute a hostile takeover that would have stripped Nexus Dynamics of its most valuable assets. Victor Harrington wasn't just arrogant, he was corrupt. And he'd almost gotten away with it. The federal investigation that followed resulted in criminal charges for 3 former executives. Victor Harrington would eventually plead guilty to securities fraud and serve 18 months in federal prison. But for Maya, the legal victories were secondary. What mattered was what she built after the destruction. She promoted talented employees who had been overlooked for years, many of them from backgrounds similar to her own. She implemented mandatory training programs focused on respect, equity, and accountability. She created a scholarship fund in her mother's name for first-generation college students pursuing business degrees. And she made one promise that became company policy. Anyone, from the CEO to the newest male clerk, could be terminated immediately for treating another human being as less than. 3 years later, Nexus Dynamics was featured on the cover of Fortune magazine. But it wasn't Maya's face on the cover. It was the face of the janitor who had been shoved aside in that lobby, who was now the head of the company's community outreach program. It was the face of the male clerk who had been threatened, who was now a junior executive in operations. It was the face of the female executive who had been interrupted, who was now the chief operating officer. The headline read, "The company that learned to see everyone." Maya Thompson was briefly mentioned in the article. She was described as a private investor who transformed the company culture. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Because for Maya, this was never about her. It was about every person standing in every lobby, being told they don't belong. It was about every child sitting in a laundry room, watching their parent be disrespected. It was about proving that the ones they dismiss, the ones they overlook, the ones they call the help, they see everything. And sometimes, they own everything too. If Maya's story moved something in you today, if you've ever been the person standing in that lobby, if you've ever been the one they underestimated, then I need you to do 2 things. First, subscribe. Right now. Because this channel tells stories about people like Maya. People like you. People who were never supposed to win, but did anyway. Hit subscribe and that notification bell, so you never miss another story. Second, share this video. Send it to someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's in that lobby right now, being told they don't belong. Let them know. Their moment is coming. And remember, the way you treat someone who can do nothing for you says everything about who you really are. Until next time.